Welcome to This Ability Clinic, where healthcare speaks your language. We cover all things medicine, pain, disability, and how the healthcare system can be more accessible and inclusive. If we haven't met before, hi, I'm your host, Dr. Stephanie Van. I'm a pain specialist in Los Angeles, and I'm board certified in pain medicine and physical medicine and rehabilitation. I have heard from too many people that when they've gone to the doctors, they felt dismissed or not listened to, or they've experienced offhanded disrespectful comments. Healthcare providers spend so many years in training, and yet we're not specifically trained on inclusive concepts in medicine. If you want to help change this, hit the like button and subscribe to This Ability Clinic. My guest tonight is an advocate and influencer. She's graduating with a degree in psychology, and like me, she's a grandmama's girl. On social media, she goes by Deaf Queen Boss. Please welcome Kellina.
How do you like to introduce yourself? Like when you meet new people who don't know anything about you, for example, like what do you say?
I say, I'd be like, hello, my name is Kellina. I'm a deaf person. I wear hearing aids and I leave it at that. And then I don't really go over it. I just like to keep it short and simple because I'm a really straightforward person.
What are your favorite types of music to listen to?
I would love my background music. For those who don't know, I am half Jamaican, half Catanusha, so I'm an island girl, so Caribbean. So I listen to my Caribbean music.
Awesome. I've been to the Caribbean a few times. It's so beautiful. I was down in the Bahamas. I've never been to Jamaica.
Bahamas is so nice. Oh
it was like a fantasy.
It's so nice.
Kellina identifies as deaf because she became hard of hearing and started wearing hearing aids when she was 4 years old. Approximately 5% of the world's population, that's 432 million adults and 34 million children and adolescents, are deaf or hard of hearing. About 1 in 8 people ages 12 and up in the US have some degree of hearing loss, and more than 90% of deaf children are born to hearing parents. We talked about what inspired her to become an advocate for deaf people.
What kind of inspired you to start a YouTube channel and put yourself out there?
Honestly, I feel like it's because I was bullied a lot of time when I was young. I went to 2 different schools. I went to a deaf school and a hearing school. So I can see the difference. And there's so many things that happen in my life to the point where I just like, you know what? Enough is enough. I actually was working at Canada's Wonderland. It's like a Six Flags for Americans. So those big park events. And I remember one time my hearing was showing all the work. And this little boy, he came up to me and he said, "Hi, miss, hi." And I'm like, "Hi, are you lost?" And he's like, "No, I wear hearing aid too." I'm like, "Wait, what?"
Aww.
And then his mom came up to me. His mom said, "Oh my God, did you just really show up the hearing aid?" I said, "Of course, why not?" And she's like, "I don't see anybody that show up the hearing aid like you. Like, this is so amazing. You're gonna make a difference in the world if you keep doing that." And right there, it just touched me so much. And I knew right there, it's time for me to be out there. And that's how my story all started, from a little boy.
That's such a cute story that you guys were able to connect. There was no barrier or awkwardness. It was just like, hey, look, we have this thing in common. Isn't that cool?
Yeah.
That's adorable.
Kellina is young, she's driven, and she's proud of who she is and her potential to make a difference. This has led to her developing a pretty big presence on social media.
I've been networking with a lot of people across the globe, especially on my Instagram. My Instagram is growing up really fast. I literally made yeah. I created that account in May. It hasn't been a year yet, and it's growing like crazy. Wow. I'm still new to this whole, being a speaker, being an advocate. So it's I still have a lot of things to learn. So that is.
But you're clearly a natural.
Yeah.
Many of Kellina's followers seek her advice, particularly about raising kids who are hard of hearing. She always encourages them to read books about being deaf with their kids, since this helps build confidence and understanding. She told me when she was little, she had access to literally only one book about being a deaf kid.
My mom was a young mom. She couldn't do it with me. So, young, don't know what's happening. It's like, oh my God, is my daughter okay? Especially being a young mom. So, yeah.
It sounds like you had a very supportive upbringing. And yeah, it sounds like you have a really good mom.
She really was. She was very strict too, because she didn't want to treat me like a disability person. She always wanted to treat me like a normal person, especially with my mom, my grandma, and everything. So I had 3 women that actually uplift me so much, and they made me who I am today. So, yeah.
Like any kid raised in a supportive environment, Kellina was held to high standards, and this kept her motivated to reach her highest potential.
I have a lot of pressure. I have a lot of standards. coming from my family, so I think I can handle the pressure. I was just like, you know what, let me just take a shot and just do it. You know, like you never know how far you can go.
We talked about some of the frustrating things about being deaf in an able-bodied society.
I actually quit my job because of COVID and because of the max. So my coworkers and my boss didn't even know how to communicate with me at all. Like they didn't even bother even asking, like, hey, how do we communicate with you? Especially myself, who's a lip reader. I have to see your face in order to understand what you're saying and complete the sentence. I will hear a few words in the sentence. Well, especially if someone's writing the math. I'll miss a few words, but I won't hear the full sentence. So that's a lot of times people forget. Especially even without the math, a lot of times people just ask really inappropriate question and the wording. So a lot of people always say like, oh, why do a lot of people get offended when I ask them about this? Because I would tell them straight up, it's because it's the wording you're using for them. You can't just say, oh, okay, yeah, you can't do this. Okay, no, that's not the right way of saying that. And like, how may I help you? Mm-hmm. That is the proper way of asking. You know, I know a lot of times people get confused when they see a deaf person, and a deaf person may get offended when someone says, oh, I'm so sorry, you're deaf. Like, don't say that. Instead of saying that, say, I'm unaware that you are hard of hearing. How can I help you? I feel like the wording needs to be more educated on that. So that is something I get really frustrated a lot of times, especially if I have to repeat over and over again for someone. Again, it's not the handworld's fault. Like I keep telling a lot of like the deaf community and the disability community, it's not their fault. It's the way we grew up, the education system, the first thing we go to, school. School never taught us how to be inclusive. School never taught us how to communicate with someone with disability or someone that is deaf. Why? Because we've been labeled and we were in school. We've been separated in classrooms. So there are, so even if you go to school, for example, high school, when I was in high school, they put me in a separate room and I was just like, why am I in this room? What the heck? So there's a lot of like barriers and improvement that need to be done for the next generation.
Does it ever bother you when people are like, listen to this, or like, I don't know, did you hear about this? It probably doesn't. I mean, those are like normal turns of phrases.
I would say what bugs me the most when people send me voice notes on Instagram or WhatsApp. Yeah, I'm just like, really? Can you just text it? and it's like, oh my God, I have to listen. And again, because I'm a lip reader, right? So I hate when people send me voice notes. So I'm like, I'm not listening to that. Just text it to me.
You gotta communicate clearly.
Exactly. So it's just kind of like, no. I hate those. I hate voice notes in general.
It's funny because some people, they need to use voice notes because it fatigues them to like type or like read. So maybe they're doing that without realizing you need something different.
Kellina and I met on this new app called Clubhouse, which is essentially a huge 24/7 conference call on whatever topic you're interested in discussing. We talked about how there are definitely ups and downs when all types of humans are connecting on new social media platforms.
My experience on Clubhouse, it's good, but there's some people, especially on Clubhouse, can be really weird sometimes because they're like, oh my God, I have to be inclusive. And, little do they know. Yeah, exactly. There's some that just like, and some don't even do it. And the thing is, it's kind of embarrassing because the people that come on stage, they do it, but they don't do it. So it's kind of like, are you not picking up a message here?
It's all about perspective too, right? Because I think people who seem ignorant or disrespectful, it's probably because they don't know a lot of people with disabilities, or they've never been confronted with having to be mindful of that. And Clubhouse is maybe like a lot of people's first opportunity to connect with people who are very different from them, not just racially or culturally, but like in terms of function and ability and use of adaptive technology, like screen readers and stuff. So of course, with any new technology and like new connections between people, I'm not surprised, that this has been a problem. But at the same time, it's also a good thing, right? Because like people, at least who are willing to learn and like get out of their comfort zone, they're going to be better off from hearing the mistakes that they're unintentionally making.
I feel like this year, it taught a lot of people more information about diversity, inclusion. I feel like a lot more people are aware of it now than before. I feel like it's because no one talks about it. But the more people we have talked about it, especially on Clubhouse, the more we can get it going. And
Kellina has worn hearing aids most of her life, so she is still learning sign language.
I'm actually learning it right now because all my friends who are deaf, especially like friends I grew up with, they all sign language stuff for me. So I'm like literally learning from them because they've been on me a lot. Like, hey, yeah, I've been learning sign language, especially if you're gonna become a coach. And I'm like, okay, I will. So
Good, I'm glad you're learning it.
Thank you.
I'm trying to learn a little too. I like know one word, which is my name, which is lame, but it's a start. So I think there definitely need to be more people who are deaf who can help people who are like either newly deaf or hospitalized and need a sign language interpreter or translator, and people who look different. Because I've also heard a big complaint is that a lot of sign language interpreters are white women, and nothing against white women, but like not everyone who's deaf is a white woman. So
exactly,
we need more people who don't fit into that box who speak sign language.
Exactly.
I asked Kellina about word choice and how she prefers to identify.
For me, I'm more comfortable with deaf just because I am deaf. I would go with hard of hearing because I feel like because I'm wearing hearing aids and I'm still hearing people. So I like the word hard of hearing better than deaf, but at the same time, I'm okay with both deaf and hard of hearing. Don't you?
What about like disabled? Because I feel like in some of the conversations I've had, people don't like disabled because it implies that you're not able to do things. Do you have a preference, disability versus something else?
Honestly, that's a very good question. There's so many things behind it, right? I tell people it's a big word. There's so many behind it. You have to study that word. I always tell people, be honest with yourself. Be honest with yourself, right? What you want to be labeled, what you want to be called. It's just a decision, your life, your identity. No one can change that for you. It's stuff for you.
We talked about what's going on in Kellina's life right now.
I'm finishing my studies at York University. So I don't know if anybody knows what that is in Canada. So it's in Toronto. I'm graduating from psychology.
What's the next step for you?
Well, the next step for me is to open my own mental health coaching business just to help those who have a disability, especially the deaf community, to actually help them to build a self-esteem and teach them that there are ways to communicate with the hearing loss, because myself, I never went to a therapist that was deaf like me, and it just felt like it was super hard to connect with the hearing one because I feel like they would understand, but they wouldn't fully. So I said, you know what, let me just be the first one because every time I look online, there isn't any. So I'm willing to take that risk and be the first one.
Kellina's career is about to jump off, but her journey hasn't been without challenges.
I always recommend a lot of people to see a therapist because I feel like that is super important, especially, having a disability, especially hard of hearing. You're going to have challenges. You're going to have that self-esteem. You're going to be like, why me? So especially for me, like, I had to build that confidence for a really long time. So I would always recommend a lot of people to find someone that they can speak to.
And you said you never found a therapist who was also hearing impaired.
No, I never did. I always wanted to be the first one, so I feel like I am the first one because I haven't heard anybody talk about it. So
I don't know any either. So in my book, you are the first one. You're trailblazing.
Yeah, so I'm willing to take that risk and like get myself out there in the world. Even help the healthcare system. I'm trying to get into the school board. I'm trying to get on everything to help those who need this.
Do you anticipate any challenges? Like, have you already tried applying for jobs, for example, in that respect?
I've been to so many barriers. I'm trying to apply for jobs, even though they said, disability act and stuff like that. But, we disability people are not stupid. We know you guys are not going to hire us because we have a disability. I know some people take their hearing aid off sometimes, and I told people don't do that. And I told them you're losing that self-respect for yourself. Right? The more you let down yourself like that, it's not gonna work. And so honestly, truly the two jobs that I have right now, they are very, very inclusive. They already knew what they were doing with me. As soon as I walked in that interview, I think they already knew I was deaf because my hearing aids were showing. I did it on purpose just to see if they would actually do it because I was gonna report it. Because
you're like interviewing them. Like, are you gonna be
exactly
against me? Huh. That is so frustrating to hear that people don't feel comfortable even like wearing their hearing aids or showing them. But like, in terms of adaptive technology or whatever, I mean, hearing aids are really good these days. You clearly have no trouble with carrying on a conversation with someone who's hearing if you're seeing their face.
I know when I walk into an interview or even going to a work environment, I would know if it's for me and if it's not for me. I will quit. Like, I'm not going to suffer.
Kellina has a strong voice, plus she's a good listener. She always recommends that her followers look up local resources and associations that support the deaf and disabled communities, since these vary depending on the country you're in.
I just wanted to let people know if you're seeing this, don't be afraid to come out. You just never know who's listening to your voice, because who knows, your voice may impact someone else's life, just like the way I made an impact on Clubhouse. I just went on stage, spoke about myself, and hey, I got so many connections, amazing networking people that really want to work with me and to help them improve their lifestyle and even how to be inclusive. So just never be afraid to speak up.
These days, we need all the psychologists we can get for the deaf and for the hearing. If you know any deaf or disabled psychologists, let me know in the comments below. If you identify as needing a psychologist who gets you, like this video and subscribe to this ability clinic. Thanks for watching. Van.
I keep thinking of things to ask you and then forgetting about them because I'm listening to your answer.
You didn't write them down?
I just was gonna go off the cuff because you're one of the first people I'm interviewing for my channel, and I have no agenda. My agenda is I want to highlight what you want to say. I'm just hey, I'm just here to learn.